Me and Chris Andre were debating last night during the live stream about what Anthony Joshua's tactics should be against Alexander Usyk. Chris Andre was saying that he thinks AJ should try to do what Tony Bellew did, at least some of what Tony Bellew did against Usyk, which is to lure Usyk into the corners. So AJ backs up, Usyk comes towards him, and then AJ tries to counter with a right hand. Bellew did that quite successfully in the early rounds against Usyk, and Maris Bradis actually did that. I pointed that out during the conversation with Chris. Maris Bradis did that quite successfully against Usyk as well. Irrespective of what tactics AJ chooses to use, because I was saying that AJ should maybe try and use the similar tactics to what Teofimo Lopez used against Lomachenko, where he basically shuts down Lomachenko by maintaining range, and AJ should have tried something similar against Alexander Usyk. But in both of those scenarios, either of those tactics, AJ needs the right technique to be able to pull it off successfully. And that is the first and foremost thing he needs to address, is the technique he has, to me, is, I don't want to say rudimentary, because he does a lot of things very well, but it isn't elite. He could take his technique to the next level, but in order to do that, he's going to need a new trainer, because you can still see the Robert Mccracken DNA in his style. This is Robert Mccracken right here fighting Howard Eastman. Look at the way Rob Mccracken stands. This is the guy that's teaching Anthony Joshua, because he's teaching him from what he knows and what he did. And even though AJ's brought in people like Angel Fernandez and these other people, what I saw last night in the Usyk fight was more Rob Mccracken than Angel Fernandez. Okay? And he keeps on talking about Rob Mccracken as his mentor and all this kind of business. And all the stuff that Rob Mccracken was telling him in the corner. Apparently late in the fight, he was saying that AJ needs to get behind the jab and you're doing brilliant, mate, and all this kind of stuff. Maybe he was just trying to, keep his morale high because he noticed that AJ was, how can I describe it, losing a bit of will. He wasn't quite as energized. He wasn't quite as enthused as he was earlier on in the fight, because Alexander Usyk had basically boxed a lot of the enthusiasm out of him by making him miss and making him pay over and over again. And I believe it was the third round where AJ got hurt. And again, flashbacks would have been coming into his mind. People are talking about AJ should have gone for it. He should have done this. He should have done that. When a guy is moving as much as Usyk, it's easier said than done. And he's not just moving. And I'm talking about head movement, stepping off to the side angles. You're constantly having to reset. You can't plant your feet to get power, because once you do, he's out of range. He's off to the side. He's doing something else. You see, in a situation like that, if you just go ahead and start letting your hands go, you're going to get countered. And when AJ did get countered clean in that third round, what happened? He was on rubbery legs. So again, all these people saying AJ should do this and AJ should, it's easier said than done. For me, needs to go back to the fundamentals. And when I say fundamentals, he needs to learn them in a different way to the way he has learned them with Rob Mccracken, which is the old school British/European from the 1980s style, which is so outdated. Now, in terms of which trainers he could pick in the live stream with G-Man and Outmatch Boxing, I talked about people like Stacey McKinley. If he's going to pick a UK trainer, I think he should at least trial Shane McGuigan. I think Shane McGuigan's doing fantastic stuff. He understands biomechanics. And that is where AJ needs to focus. The biomechanics that he's working with right now, not good. Okay? Needs to get somebody that understands biomechanics better than Rob Mccracken, gets him to loosen up, gets him to become more fluid. And AJ was moving in that direction, strangely. If you look at the first Andy Ruiz fight, there was a bit more of that fluidity. But then when he got beat by Ruiz, right, he was doing well. Then he got careless, got too greedy, jumped in, got caught, and the rest is history. He then seemed to revert back to the Robert Mccracken style. When he came out for the Ruiz rematch, it was hands up all the time. There wasn't really much of a left hand down. There wasn't that much fluidity. It was very upright and rigid. He won the fight. He used his legs. And I said going into that fight that he has the skills to outbox Andy Ruiz. He showed it in the first 2 rounds of the first fight. There's no doubt he's got the skills to outbox him, sufficient skills to outbox him. Yeah? No doubt. It's just whether he can maintain the stamina, and it's whether he's not going to be haunted by what happened in that first fight. But Ruiz was never a guy with great head movement or good defense or quick feet. He was always a guy that could be outboxed on the outside, just like Joseph Parker showed. So that was one thing, losing to Ruiz and rectifying it the next time around. And remember I said that even if he goes in there and beats Ruiz in the rematch, it's only going to be a matter of time before he gets beat again. I said that at the time. You can't tell me I didn't say I said it. Yeah, because he isn't addressing the technical issues, which have been there all along under Rob Mccracken. The style issues, the body mechanics issues, or biomechanics, whatever you want to call it. Not addressing those things. Still too stiff, still too robotic for my liking, still too upright. Not dynamic enough, and also he doesn't have that veteran air about him. You know, when you're in there with a vet, he's very wily and he's crafty and he's looking and he can lure you into things. That's not really AJ, you know? Needs to get those kind of veteran moves from somewhere. The crafty veteran stuff. Doesn't have it. Tyson Fury has it for sure. Alexander Usyk has it. Anthony Joshua needs it too if he's going to come back, regain his title, and rather than having these constant blips in the road, actually go on a lengthy run where he's able to defend his title multiple times. Now, again, Shane McGuigan, I think, would be a good person to at least trial with. As far as British trainers, maybe even Adam Booth. In America, I mentioned Stacey McKinley. I mentioned, was there somebody else? I mentioned Stacey McKinley. Shout out to Devin because he spoke about a couple of different trainers. Stacey McKinley, who's the other one now? Jonathan Banks is who Devin was talking about. That's a good shout. James Ali Bashir is another shout. Some people are going to say Freddie Roach and these people, but I'm not sure about that. But definitely James Ali Bashir, Jonathan Banks, I think would be good for Anthony Joshua because of all the experience, particularly with Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah, I think they could definitely learn from that because Klitschko and AJ have similar kind of mentalities, similar personalities. Not exactly the same, there are differences, but similar personalities. Both almost identical in terms of height and reach and all that. So Banks and Bashir, if they got with AJ, they might be able to help him significantly. You know, again, understanding Vladimir's mentality and then applying the same things to Anthony Joshua. And what I talked about with regards to tactics against somebody like Usyk, you see, if you try to box with Usyk, which is what AJ did, and by boxing, I'm talking about I throw this shot, you throw that shot. I feint here, you go for the feint, I hit you with this one. This is boxing. It's like a tit for tat thing, a chess match, right? What Vladimir Klitschko would do is he would say, okay, I'm not going to box with you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in this construct. I'm going to maintain this particular range. No matter what you do, if you come forward, I'm going to take a step back and the jab is going to be there. I've got the longer reach than you. So at the end of the day, if you want to be able to hit me, you're going to have to come inside a certain range and that's where my jab's going to be, waiting for you, right? And he would just maintain that construct. He was an expert at maintaining that construct. And eventually the opponent would get tired, the opponent would get frustrated, they'd start making mistakes, and that's when he'd be able to capitalize. Now, Chris Andre said that in sparring, and we didn't see the sparring, Usyk was giving Klitschko fits. And that may be the case. But again, if you look at Teofimo Lopez when he fought Vasyl Lomachenko, it's the same principle. He stayed in a construct. He wasn't trying to throw a million punches and look for all kind of power. He stayed in a construct with the jab, and he just didn't allow Lomachenko close to him. It's not until late in the fight when Lopez started getting tired and slowing down, that's when Lomachenko was able to slip those jabs and get in close and start doing some work. But that kind of construct, we're just keeping the guy on the end of a jab and not letting him get close enough because you got the longer arms. I feel that's something AJ could do if he learned the technique and if he practiced it and drilled it over and over again. And one thing which G-Man said before the fight, which AJ didn't really do, is jab to Usyk's body. Again, I know it's easier said than done, particularly against the southpaw, but I do feel like he could have stabilized Usyk with a jab, because a lot of the time AJ was trying to jab to the head, and of course, his jab in hand is clashing with Usyk's jab in hand. And Usyk was also catching AJ with right hooks from time to time, right? But I feel like if you can't hit a guy's head, hit him in the chest. Yeah, if you can't, if the body is too much of a risk because your arm's going to drop down and it's going to expose your chin, jab the guy in the chest, just underneath the chin, because he can move his head. He can't move his chest as easily. Yeah, that's going to stabilize a guy. AJ wasn't doing these things. He was looking for, I guess, right hooks to the body, right uppercuts, right hands. These are the things people normally look for against southpaws. But this is not your ordinary southpaw. This guy's a lot more tricky, he's a lot more skillful, incredible head movement, incredible foot movement, punch selection, accuracy, better hand-eye coordination than the big guys. So my whole thing is, you don't want to get into a boxing match with a guy like that. You don't want to go tit for tat with him. AJ doesn't have the slickness for that. So what you want to do is say, forget about your little, tricks and your boxing. Forget about all that. I'm the big guy. I'm the guy with the longer arms. Here's a jab. And you try get past this jab. That's what game we're going to play. You try get past my jab. I'm not going to try and swap different punches with you and let's see who can set who up for this punch. No. Here's my jab. And that's all you're getting. And when you come close to me, you're getting a jab and another jab. And if you manage to get past the jab, I'm grabbing you. And that's it. The jab, grab Vladimir Klitschko. It's ugly, but against the guy. And look, I don't think you should grab excessively because that's obviously illegal. You can get disqualified for that, and rightly so. But within reason, in boxing, you are allowed a certain amount of clinching, just not excessive clinching. You look at any boxing rules, excessive clinching is illegal. As long as you're not doing it excessively, it's fine. And for me, those are the tactics that AJ should work with. The stuff that Chris Andre was talking about, I think could work too, but I think that AJ would need longer to develop that kind of technique where you can back up into corners and lure a guy in and hit him with a counter right hand. That to me is so far removed from what AJ is right now. Whereas the Teofimo Lopez tactics that he used against Lomachenko, the typical Klitschko stuff, that's, I think, closer to what AJ could do now rather than the slicker stuff. In time, it would be good if he could do the slicker stuff too. Yeah? Maybe he's going to be even better if he can do what Chris Andre said he could do, but I just don't feel like he's anywhere close to that right now. I feel like AJ is in his infancy in terms of developing his boxing technique. He's done fantastically well to be an elite fighter in a relatively few amount of fights and with Rob Mccracken, with the technique that he has. But he needs to take that technique to the next level. Irrespective of what tactics he chooses to use, the technique needs to get better. It needs to be bending more at the waist, more fluid, less upright, more dynamic with his hand positioning, and so on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below as far as what trainer you think AJ should tighten. I'm sure there are going to be some AJ diehards, particularly the casuals, who are saying, no, you'll see, he'll come back with Rob Mccracken and he'll beat Usyk again. And these people don't understand boxing. They are driven by emotion. They're not driven by boxing knowledge or any kind of rational, critical thinking. They're not driven by that. It's all about emotion and, oh, he's loyal to Rob and, oh, Rob's like a father figure. Forget about all that. This is the cold, hard light of day, right? And the cold, tough sport of boxing. Ain't no time for any of that emotionalism and, oh, loyalty this. No. It's about getting Anthony Joshua to fulfill his potential. The tools that he has, the height, the reach, the athleticism, the punching power, the balance, getting all that and making the most of it. And with Rob Mccracken, I'm telling you, he's never going to make the most of it. He's done fantastically well to get as far as he has. With another trainer who's better suited to him than Rob Mccracken in terms of what they can teach him, he'll go even further. Now, I'm going to do another video about what Anthony Joshua needs as far as a career plan from here on in, if he's to fulfill his potential. All right, so hold tight for that. But for now, Give me some suggestions in the comments below as far as trainers you think would work well for Anthony Joshua. Again, when it comes to British trainers, Shane McGuigan, fantastic. AJ's fighter, right? He manages Lawrence Okolie, his management company, 258 Management, who's a cruiserweight champion of the world. He has come on leaps and bounds under Shane McGuigan. Lawrence Okolie bends more at the waist now. Clinches less. More dynamic, more upper body movement. More side on, slicker. You go and look at Lawrence Okolie when he was fighting Luke Watkins. Look how upright he was. Hands up. You know, it was almost AJ-esque. Compare his technique. Forget about tactics. Tactics are important, but the most important thing is technique. Yeah? Look at Lawrence Okolie's technique against Luke Watkins. Then look at Lawrence Okolie's technique against Krzysztof Glowatsky. Night and day. Shane McGuigan has made this guy a lot slicker. Shane McGuigan understands the biomechanics. What a fighter needs to get slicker and more fluid. Rob Mccracken doesn't understand. So, yeah, I talked about Adam Booth as another shout. There was another trainer I was thinking of. Joe Joyce's trainer. What's his name? The little Cuban guy. Forgotten his name. Trains Linares. What's the little Cuban guy called, man? Hang on. I forget his name. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Ishmael Salas, excuse me. Ishmael Salas would also be a good shout for AJ. And AJ has the kind of money where Ishmael Salas, because look, Salas's loyalties are divided. He was training Joe Joyce, and all of a sudden he had to leave Joyce to go train Linares and, you know, all this kind of business. AJ's got the kind of money where Salas will surely say, AJ has to be my main guy. So Ishmael Salas is also a good shout for Anthony Joshua. The old Cuban style. He also understands biomechanics and what have you. And that's somebody he should at least trial with. I'm not saying that any of these guys are definitively the one, but he should go and spend some time with all these different trainers. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.